Welcome to Call to Post, the Off the Bench Podcast Network feature dedicated to thoroughbred racing. Hosting today's show will be Brandon Ferst, and Brandon will be joined by Raider Jim Martinez. Grab some paper, make some notes, enjoy yourselves. Let's talk thoroughbred racing. Riders up.
What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are First. Welcome into another edition of the Call to Post here on the network. We break down everything thoroughbred horse racing has to offer here in North America. Obviously, a big weekend at Del Mar. Going to look back at a couple weekends back at Saratoga. And talk a little bit about what we got going on this weekend as well at Saratoga. But Del Mar, big weekend for them, their biggest weekend of the summer, I should say, with the Pacific Classic and 5 full graded stakes races. To help me break it all down today is my co-host, as always, Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. Mr. Martinez, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. We talked NFL football yesterday. We're talking thoroughbred racing today. And I will tell you, it just feels like thoroughbred racing is just getting underway as we're halfway through the Del Mar season, and that means we're getting that much closer to planning for the Breeders' Cup, where you and I are going to be there. Amen. On Friday for sure.
Friday for sure. Saturday, feel free to get into our DMs and point us in the direction of a manageable ticket. So very, very exciting. Either way, we will have you covered for the Breeders' Cup. I know myself, I already have the day off. So at the very least, I'll be sitting watching TVG or NBC and hopefully collecting with all of you. But as we said, we got some, housekeeping to do before we get there, before we get to the Super Bowl, before you get to the tournament. You got to figure out who gets the dance tickets, if you will. And we're working on that. It was a big weekend a couple weeks back. For me, maybe one of the most loaded races, at least in North America, of this calendar year was the Whitney at Saratoga. I personally threw an umbrella on the field on everyone who wasn't Knicks Go. Unfortunately, Knicks Go, came in and got the job done. Just when you kind of find yourself maybe doubting Knicks Go, that horse comes back and puts another incredible run together, dominates the field. It was a very close field, but it was another wire-to-wire finish. Now, what's really cool about this for Knicks Go is obviously last year won the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Well, this year, because of that Whitney win, if it's going to Breeders' Cup weekend, it's going to be that last race on Saturday, the Breeders' Cup Classic, the big one. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Knicks Go kind of stacks up with the rest of that field. But we'll have one more participant that will get their name at least eligible for the Longines Classic after whoever wins the Pacific Classic. We'll get to that in a bit. But back to the Whitney, Raider Jim. What were your thoughts? Obviously, we're high on Swiss Skydiver, maybe just a little bit too much for that filly, but Knicks Go, my goodness, maybe ate my words for sure.
What a horse. What an athlete. But I will tell you, Silver State, man, made it a race. Silver State made it a race, and it was going down that home stretch. And I thought, wow, it is going to be an upset. And then it was just, no, it's somewhere, somehow, Knicks Go has this other gear and can just, is a fighter, real competitor, because it's not just about blowing off the competition, but it's also holding off the competition when the pressure's coming on. But it was a fantastic race. It was what you expected or what you hoped to see out of a field like that.
I agree. And as I said, just back to when we talked about the Whitney, I mean, just an absolute, I think there were only 5 horses in that field.
Correct.
But, you got Maxfield, who's right there at the top. Obviously, we talked about Knicks Go and Silver State. And like I said, I'm sure Latruska, Monomoy Girl, and Marahuka, who I think we're going to be talking about at Saratoga here in a minute. Those might have a say on, in terms of the best fillies, but Swiss Skydiver, at least for me, has been the only filly that in the last 2 years has looked at that and said, you know what, I'll race the boys in these big races. Obviously won the Preakness last year, fell a little short in the Whitney, but I don't think it's the last we're going to hear from Swiss Skydiver. And, If we get all those fillies in that Longines, or excuse me, the Breeders' Cup Distaff, wow, that might be
that's going to be a race.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That will be one. You get Monomoy Girl, Latruska, Marahuka, maybe Swiss Skydiver. Watch out because that's going to be a great one. And we talked about it last year in the Breeders' Cup. There's going to be 1 or 2 international horses in every single race that will probably surprise some people. Hopefully not us. We'll be ready for that. But last year we definitely, it was the international flavor throughout. So plenty of money to be cashed there. We did have last week, apologies. Myself had a little bit of a scheduling conflict, wasn't able to do call post last week. We were going to talk about the 4StarDave, which is a win in your in race to the FanDuel Mile. That was a week after the Whitney, and it was Got Stormy running a, as you said before we got rolling, just a fantastic race. So Got Stormy, if it so chooses, will be running at Del Mar on that Saturday in the FanDuel Mile. Raider Jim, what were your thoughts on Got Stormy?
Yeah, you know what? Fantastic race. And before I get into how the race was run, every Saturday I do my best on behalf of the First Off the Bench podcast network and of course the original Call to Post here. I try to keep up with the major stakes races, and somewhere between 60 minutes and 20 minutes before the race post time, I will go on and drop some names. Well, I'm happy to say that for the 4StarDave, I name, what I will usually do is put down 3 horses and maybe 1 or 2 underneath that you might want to watch for a long shot. Had Set Piece, the place horse, had Casa Creed, the show horse, had Got Stormy as my number 4 pick as the underneath long shot. Don't leave it off your ticket. And so we actually hit 3 for 3 on that one. Got Stormy ran probably, it was just an error-free race. Just what a job the jockey did. It was a fantastic race. Casa Creed, I thought might have a little bit more in the tank, but did not. You just couldn't say enough about it. And yeah, at $27 payout. So we were at what, 12 and a half to 1, something like that when it went off.
Yeah.
And
fantastic.
a ticket to Breeders' Cup weekend.
Big time. I think that's obviously what the connections of Got Stormy are looking at. Just to kind of piggyback on top of what talked about kind of with that international flavor, there is a horse that also punched its ticket into Longines Classic. Obviously, it's a little difficult to talk about the worldwide races just because we don't have the past performances, or at least they're not as easily accessible to us as normal. And it was Mishriff, an Irish horse who is on, might be one of the top horses that you probably have never heard of, or at least haven't really dove too deep into. That horse did win the Jude Monte international stakes. Be racing on that Saturday slate with Nick's Go if it so chooses in the Longines Classic. Keep an eye on Mishriff. It's going to be a really tough race. It's going to be obviously the best of the best in that race, but Mishriff definitely deserves to be in that mix as well. So with that, it's time to turn our attention to the weekend that will be at Saratoga. No win in your in races for Saratoga. That will be next week, but we do have some big money being thrown out. We'll start with race 9. It's going to be a grade 2 Lake Placid Stakes going 1 mile and 16 on the turf. Raider Jim, what do you got for the Lake Placid Stakes at Saratoga?
Small field, but a great field. And the favorite right now is the 2-horse Technical Analysis, going to be ridden by Jose Ortiz. This is a Chad Brown horse. Is good at the distance. Winning circle, the winner circle, 2 out of the last 3 outings, has respectable speeds. That right now, currently, I think the odds I saw were 6 to 5.
Yep.
Then there is the 5-horse. I like the 5-horse Love Struck, John Velasquez. That's a William Mott horse. Winner circle 2 at this distance, but has had a long layoff. It's been a while since it's been on the track in a race, but at 6 to 1, you got to give this horse a look. That's the 5-horse Love Struck. Now, the surprise horse for some might be the 1-horse on the rail, Iliagami. Manuel Franco is going to be riding. It's a George Arnold horse. Ran the distance the last 3 times it was out, 2 of those times in the winner's circle. Good speed and has the potential to upset from where I'm sitting. And then my underneath horse would be number 4, Runaway Rumor with Jose Lescano, Jorge Abreu. Last 3 times at a mile, had winner circle 2 times. Good speeds, could challenge, but again, you're going to push them a few more yards with the 1 1/16. That's why I have it as the underneath pick and not as the 3rd pick. Iliogami, though, I'm telling you, that's a horse that you need to watch out for.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Even Spanish Love Affair, the 6 horse, interesting, just kind of rolling through, looking at the past performances. This is the only, or at least in this race, this is a horse that actually ran in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly Turf last year at Keeneland. So obviously this is a horse maybe would have been expected to do a little bit better this, this calendar year, maybe not quite on track for what was been expected. 3-1, we're going to see hopefully if that improves. Now, 2 out of its last 3 races, actually, I'll throw all 4 races in there. The highest it's ran has been an 84 on turf. Even last time out was a 75. The Appalachian in Keeneland in April ran a 68. That's not going to get the job done, I believe, in this race, mainly because of that 2 horse. Honestly, technical analysis is pretty much at the very least in the low 80s. So keep an eye there on that. Obviously, as you kind of talked about, Chad Brown, and that's Julio, or is that Julio Ortiz? Jose Ortiz, excuse me.
Irad's brother.
Yes, exactly. Unfortunately, he's trying to break out of Irad, or his brother Irad's shadow a bit. But I am keeping my eye on Spanish Love Affair as well. However, I need that number to go just a little bit more because, like I said, I know this horse probably has the ability, but we really haven't seen it consistently overall, and let alone this year. I do like when you talked about Love Struck. Only 3 races. We'll see how this goes. These are fillies on the turf, only 3-year-olds. So, Lake Placid Stakes, it's a long race. You're going 1 mile and 16 on a big course, or at least, the turf course isn't nearly as big as obviously the dirt course, but it is still a big turf track. It's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to be a fantastic race with kind of, I would say, a lot of late speed. I think you're going to see someone coming from the back. You might see some low speed numbers in that first quarter mile, half mile, and then they're going to really kick it into gear, I believe, heading for home. But race 10 on that same slate at Saratoga is for 3-year-old fillies. These will be going on dirt, and it is 1.25 miles, so definitely a lot longer. One of the longest races we'll have on the North American slate, and it will pay a very nice $600,000 in the purse. Just looking through right now, this was, of course, when we were talking about Marahuca. Obviously, this is a horse that kind of shocked everyone a couple weeks back, or I guess, no, that was about 6 weeks back, in the CCA Oaks, beat Clairiere, beat Malathot at 15-1, and really ran well. But Malathot is coming for a little bit of revenge at 7-2 for Marahuca, even money right now for Malathot. Right now, Malathot took its first loss to Marahuca in that race I talked about. This is a horse that has run 6 times, finished in the winner's circle 5 of those. Obviously, last time out, finished 2nd. So this is a horse that is going to obviously get you in the money, but at even money, you're probably going to want to look somewhere else. Where I kind of found myself ending up at is Army Wife. This is a horse currently right now at 6-1, has won 3 of its last 4 races. It did run in the Gazelle grade 3 back in April at Aqueduct, lost out to search results, and did lose out to Marahuca. But I do think Army Wife here in this situation, because I think it's going to come down to probably Marahuca and Malathot. So myself personally, I'm kind of looking for a third. And it's probably going to be between either Army Wife or the 3-horse Clairiere. Clairiere has been pretty much, I don't want to say third best, but has been kind of in the shadow of both Marahuca and Malathot, and great opportunity right now for Clairiere to kind of jump out on that filly scene and say, hey, I have a chance to do that as well. But it's going to be very tough when you have Marahuca, Malathot there at the top, and even probably fighting it out, to finish out the ticket with either Army Wife or Clairiere. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the Alabama Stakes?
Yeah, Alabama Stakes is virtually the same field we saw at the end of July. The last time, same track, same field, and I think you're going to possibly see the same results this time around. Maracuja ran a good race a few weeks back. It got it by a head, and Malathaat just put Malathaat away. At 7-2, I'm going to take those odds all day long. You just have to. It's great, and even money is better than no money at all. But I think it's going to be 6-4. I've got Clairiere as the third choice with Irad Ortiz, and then Crazy Beautiful is my fourth underneath horse with his brother Jose, and that's Kenny McPeak is the trainer for that one. The Clairiere trainer is Stephen Asmussen, the most winning trainer in North America. So it's just going to be a good race. It's one of those you don't want to miss because it's going to be fast and furious, and undoubtedly it's going to once again go down to the wire like the last time they were all on the track.
I agree. And Will Secret is interesting here. Obviously 15-1. It's going to take an incredible run, but I look back at the Kentucky Oaks. Obviously that's, the top spot for a lot of these fillies on dirt, at least, in the early part of the calendar year, is the Kentucky Oaks. Was 27-1, ended up coming in third, paid a nice little change, ran a 91 in that, however, took big steps back as the favorite in the Indiana Oaks, ran only a 64. That is not going to get the job done. Best case scenario, I believe, for Will Secret would be third. But, just keep an eye there. Like I said, that Kentucky Oaks, everything's a little kind of, magnified with the Kentucky Oaks, but in 91, if that horse can run that as well, I think it will get in the money, and even a third place. Look, if it goes Marahuka, Malathaat, one of those two, and then Will Secret comes in third, Will Secret will pay you more on that one show ticket than any other winners for those very short money favorites. So it's going to be a fantastic race. I'm excited to see kind of if Marahuka can continue to do what it did, obviously, against Malathaat, because Malathaat, up until that point, was undefeated and looked like a filly that could possibly run with the boys at any level. So turning our attention to the absolutely loaded field of Del Mar, we have 5 graded stakes races, and including, of course, race number 10, which we'll get to. This Pacific Classic, which is going to have a purse of $1 million, and of course get you into the Longines Classic on Breeders' Cup weekend in a couple months. But we will start with the Grade 3 Torrey Pines Stakes. This is another race for 3-year-old fillies going on dirt, a full mile on the track. And Raider Jim, I'll give you the honors on the Torrey Pines.
Yeah, a name we haven't really mentioned a lot since the Del Mar season got started, but in this race you're going to, and it's kind of hard to not give Bob Baffert the edge in this one. Bob Baffert has the favorite horse, Private Mission, out of Kentucky, currently at 9-5. But what makes that horse an even bigger favorite is the jockey, and that's Flavian Pratt, who is just owning Del Mar this year. Pratt went out, flew out back east to run at Arlington, I should say, and then came back just so he could be here for Sunday races. But so the 7 horse on the outside is going to be your favorite. I do like the 4 horse Forest Caraway, JJ Hernandez. Juan Hernandez is, I believe, still the second jockey right now on the leaderboard. He's at 5-2. After that, the other 2 horses I would fill in my ticket with are the 2 horse, and the 2 horse is Lizette, also out of Kentucky. That's Umberto Rispoli is going to be riding that one, and you can't overlook the horse on the rail, the 1 horse Lady Mystify. That all the way from the East Coast, we've got another Hall of Famer in the house on the track this week, and that's going to be Florent Giroux is going to be riding Lady Mystify currently at 7-2. So it's going to be Private Mission is your favorite. After that, it's Forest Caraway, Lizette, Lady Mystify. Those are the 4 horses I'm going to be keeping an eye on the lines and see how they change.
Definitely. And just kind of going through, this, there's some, I don't want to say interesting names, just maybe names that you don't quite know, especially in the jockey side of things, because there are certain, maybe jockeys that have taking the flight into Saratoga for their weekend. But I'm also looking at the 6-horse I'm So Anna. Now, I'm going to need that number to get a little higher than 4-1. But it looks like the jockey is Frey.
Kyle Frey, and he's having a great season at Del Mar as well. Yeah. I think he's in the top. He's got to be in the top 7 if he's not in the top 5 right now.
Yeah, so that'll be very interesting. I think, like I said, that horse is going to need to, maybe inflate those numbers a little bit to get my attention. But I agree with you. Private Mission, that's a horse. Obviously, last time out, it won its debut, looked absolutely fantastic. This is a horse that cost $750,000 to purchase. So a lot of expectations for this horse. Obviously, only 3 years old for this filly, but won its debut, took a step back in the Desi Arnaz last November in the Bing Crosby season, then took a long break, almost 9 months before running again at Santa Anita, and had to drop down to optional claiming to just kind of get its legs underneath them, but did get a win last time out. So 2 out of 3 runs for this horse have been winners. My only question, I guess I would say, is obviously this is it is a grade 3, so you are stepping up in class. So that is a bit of a question mark, but very few times Bob Baffert does not have his horses ready to run. Kind of as we said, he's been kind of quiet, or at least on this podcast, we haven't brought him up. And I agree with you on Forrest Caraway. Obviously, Peter Miller is, probably going to be a Hall of Famer. I don't think there's too many doubts about that. Last time out, this was a horse also had to kind of drop down into the optional claiming just to kind of get its, legs underneath them. But a lot of these horses have taken, it took them a while to get their 2021 season underway. So wonder again, kind of how that affects things for this, but it's going to be a fantastic race, as really I think this whole card will be. But that is the grade 3 Torrey Pines Stakes. Yep.
Peter Miller, I believe, is the leading trainer right now at Del Mar. Bob Baffert, while we're not talking about him week in and week out, he is still in the top 3 as far as winning percentage for trainers. So he's being very select about the horses he puts in. It's not, I'm not going to put this horse in unless I'm pretty sure I can get him the money. And that philosophy is paying off for him. So I'm sure we'll see him in the winner's circle or in the money for sure on Saturday.
Definitely. All right, moving on to the Del Mar Mile Stakes. This is going, of course, 1 mile on the turf for 3-year-olds and up. The purse will be a hefty $300,000. I'll take the reins on this one. I believe at the moment, we have Smooth Like Straight. This is a horse I believe has already punched a ticket to the I don't know where it would be. Maybe the mile, now that I think about Turf Mile, but I believe Smooth Like Straight, because it won the Shoemaker Mile back in May at Santa Anita, did get a win and you're in. But Smooth Like Straight for me is obviously the horse that, the last 3 races have all been in the hundreds. I mean, even going back, the lowest it's ran in the last 6 races has been a 96, and every single race has gotten better and better. But there is plenty of challengers here, and it's right above him as well with Hit the Road. This is, as I put, a feast or famine horse. This is a horse that's either going to get into the winner's circle or it's not going to get in the money. So at 5-2, maybe that's a little bit of a scare to me for a horse that seems to kind of, you're either up top or you're not factoring in anything. And, once again, horse racing, you don't need to hit the winner to win, actually. So another one that's interesting to me is Mo Forza. Obviously 8-5. This is a horse that's made nearly $750,000 in its career. Last 2 races, we'll say 6 of the last 7 races, this horse has finished in the winner's circle in grade 2 and grade 3s. Last time out at Santa Anita ran a fantastic 106, currently 8-5. That might make it the favorite. It is. So 8-5 for Mo Forza, 9-5 for Smooth Like Straight. And then Hit the Road will be 5-2. Next Shares is an interesting one to me. Obviously, this is a horse that's won 1.8 million in its career. But it will, it's an 8-year-old. It's had 41 runs. I don't want to say what does it have left in the tank, but that's kind of what everyone's asking themselves right now. 41 runs. That is a lot over a career. I think we'll be seeing next shares into the breeding barn here soon. So we'll enjoy watching next shares continue to run for a horse that will love to win or at least get themselves to a nice even $2 million career earnings. But 15 to 1 with this field, I think it's just a little too much. And I didn't even bring up Neptune Storm, who's another really, really good horse as well. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the Del Mar Mile Stakes?
Yeah, it's been a long, long layoff between races, but I've actually got the 6-horse to favorite, Flavian Pratt, Peter Miller. I've got him as the favorite. A long layoff between races, like I said, but he's got speed at this distance on the track, on the surface. So he's a turf horse, runs the distance, runs it very fast. And what are you going to say when you have a horse that's been in the winner's circle as frequently as he has, and then you put Flavian Pratt on board? That's the stars lining up on your betting ticket. Smooth Like Straight, of course, Umberto Rispoli, Michael McCarthy, in the money the last 3 out, one at this distance on the turf in Santa Anita, at Santa Anita in May. Placed with a great speed, 1 1/8 mile at Del Mar back in July. So Smooth Like Straight, again, you're going to see it in the money. Then you do have Hit the Road. Florent Giroux, again, he's here for a reason. He's here because he knows how to ride, and these races mean something. So Hit the Road, Florent Giroux. Rough run at Keeneland back in April, still ran a 102, and I used the Equibase speeds, but still ran a 102. But in March and February, at the distance on the turf in the winner's circle. So that's a horse that definitely has the potential to make this a race. Neptune Storm, as you mentioned, it's going to be Juan Hernandez and Peter Miller. Placed in winner's circle the last 2 times out. Winner's circle at Del Mar on the 18th of July. Ran a 98, so the speed's not quite that, it's very respectable. And the one, though, underneath that I'm going to keep my eye on and would bump it up onto my ticket is going to be the 5-horse Count Again. Now, in the money, 2 out of the last 3. This is a step up in caliber of race for this horse, but ran this distance and showed the last time at Del Mar. But to me, the difference maker is going to be you've got Jersey Joe Bravo in the saddle, and Jersey Joe is coming along. He's all of a sudden in the top 5. And he's kind of liking the sunshine at Del Mar. So don't be surprised if Count Again ruins somebody's ticket by finishing in the money.
That's a great point, too. You look at Count Again, its best run of its career came on this same track. Now, it was 1.16 miles, so a little less, but still, that was back last November in the Seabiscuit. That was actually its last win. This is a horse that's been in the grade 1 and grade 2 levels, obviously, last year and then this year as well. Yeah, the Mo Forza, I didn't really realize that, but yeah, it has not raced since last October.
Yes.
And early October, I believe. So that's an interesting one. October 3rd, obviously, Peter Miller has the horse ready to roll. And as you said, just looking at this, Flavian Pratt is at almost 30% for the win. If you're in the 20s, you're having a hell of a year. He's in the 30s, and for his entire year, not just at Del Mar, he's right there as well with a 28% win percentage. So Flavian Pratt, Peter Miller, when these two combined at Del Mar in the last year and a half, guess what? Another 30% win total with a 2.25 or a $2.25 return on investment for a horse that, or at least jockey and trainer combo that usually get a lot of blind money just because of who they are. So keep an eye on that. Mo Forza, interesting to see how this horse runs because, it's been really tough to knock this horse off of its pedestal. The one thing I will say, it's been a predominantly West Coast horse, Santa Anita and Del Mar. It took one trip back east, and it was in the Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational. And struggled. It finished in 9th, but that was a big grade 1 that it needed to do. And for Mo Forza, it's hard to get away from that horse, hard to get away from that jockey, hard to get away from that trainer. So yeah, I think that's a very, very safe bet in that situation.
And given the long span between the last time it was on the track competing, the outside post is probably going to be very favorable for Flavien Prat, because he's not going to get pushed in on the rail. He's not going to be in the center where he could get bumped a little bit. He can actually almost, he's going to be able to choose his course a little easier and keep close to the pack, but stay on that outside. And if this horse has a fifth gear, he's going to find it, and that's going to be it.
Amen. And it's going to be a really, really interesting race, how it kind of, like you talked about, where those horses end up, obviously in the winner's circle and filling out the ticket, but how they get there in terms of, what needs to be done. Because look, let's be honest, if it's going to come down to, jockey making a move, yeah, I'm going to put my money on Flavien Prat, because he is at the top of his game right now. And I don't think there are too many that can challenge him. But moving on to race number 9 on the card, it will be a grade 1, the Del Mar Oaks, going 1 mile and an eighth on the turf track. The purse here will be a cool $300,000. There's a lot of really, really good talent here in this race as we kind of get into these two grade 1s and a grade 2 to finish up the Del Mar Saturday. But Raider Jim, I'll give you the honors to start us off on the Del Mar Oaks.
Del Mar Oaks, this is going to be a good one. This is going to be this one's for the ladies, if you will, because again, as we've covered before, if it's an Oaks race, that means it's going to be just for the fillies. And it's the broken record thing, and you look and you look and you look, and you don't want to keep coming out firing the same shots all the time. But who's the favorite for me? It's going to be the 3-horse going global out of Ireland. Flavien Prat on board, and Phil D'Amato is the trainer. Winner's circle, the last 2 at this distance with 104 and 99 speeds. And again, it's Flavien Prat. Then I have the 1-horse closing remarks, Umberto Rispoli. Carly Gaines, the trainer, in the money, 3 for 3 the last times out. Ran a 99 at this distance in Santa Anita back in April. And then the 9-horse Soaring Sky, also out of Ireland. Florent Giroux, Jessica Harrington is the trainer. Running in North America, I couldn't find out if this is the first time this horse is running in North America. Hard to find any speeds because the records for this were all from Europe. But in the money, the last 3, it was a show, and a place. So what I found out and learned the hard way is just how good these international horses are. And so even though we've got show, place the last 3 times out, it's made the run here to North America. How does the horse travel? We'll find out, but you do have Florent Giroux in the saddle, and that could be enough to get this horse in the money. Now, my underneath pick on this race is going to be the 8-horse Tetragonal, also out of Ireland. That's my watch horse. I'm going to wait and see what happens. Let me see what the odds are. Right now, it's 12-1, but that's going to probably drop. And even if not, another horse out of Ireland showed at 1 mile with a speed of 102 at Del Mar back at the end of July. And again, why do I like this horse? Because Jersey Joe Bravo's at the reins, and Joe Bravo is, like I say, he's settling in at Del Mar and he's liking it. So I really think that this horse at 12-1, that might be your long shot to fill out your ticket.
Definitely. And Tetragonal, this is kind of a San Clemente 2.0. The kind of similar race that was ran a little bit less than a month ago, in the 24th of July. I do remember talking about it, and that was I guess maybe I'll call it the return to prominence for Madone, who obviously started out winning, I think it's first 3 races, and then was a heavy underdog in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly Turf, and struggled. Obviously, that's when Aunt Pearl went and did her thing last year. Continued to kind of struggle, even though it did win a grade 3 earlier. And then at 6-1, did get a win for Madone in that San Clemente, as I did talk about. Now, the question was that what we're seeing from Madone going forward, or was that a bit of a fluke? It did beat, obviously, Going Global and Tetragonal, among others. But I agree with you on going global. This is a horse that has kind of, look, Flavian Pratt, Philip D'Amato, and that's all you kind of need to know right now. When you have those two together, once again, I feel like a lot of these jockey trainer combos, whenever you're looking at Flavian Pratt, just assume you're going to hit the 30 or at least get very close to the 30% win percentage. And that's where those two are as well. So going global has to be, at least for me, the favorite. Madone at 5-2. I'm going to need to see that get a little closer to 5-1 or even 6-1, or at least I need to see Madone do what this horse did in the San Clemente again. There's a horse, the 7 horse, and this is Chad Brown and
Brown's
Joel
in the
Rosario.
house.
Yeah,
right.
Fluffy Socks. And this is a horse that kind of a traveler. It doesn't stay. It's Aqueduct, Belmont, Saratoga, Pimlico, Kentucky Downs, Saratoga again. It's had one run at Del Mar. It was in the Jimmy Durante last November. And as the favorite, it got the job done, actually beat a horse, Havanica, who will run in this race. Is a bit of a, I think, 10-1 for Havanica at the moment. Yeah, that's the 2 horse. But Fluffy Socks at 4-1, that's going to get my attention. Definitely, once again, you want to keep your eye on that. Usually Chad Brown horses are going to get a bit of blind money. However, there are plenty of ways to throw your money around here. And Tetragonal, that's very interesting to me to see Tetragonal at 12-1 after what it did in the San Clemente. I obviously didn't win, but was 13-1 and still came third. Usually the odds makers will try and cover themselves and just go, okay, well, if this horse is going to win, it's going to win at 8-1 this time instead of another 12-1 ticket being cashed. But we'll see how it goes. One thing we do got to say with Tetragonal, it's 0-3 against Madone. But once again, what are we going to get from Madone? Because this horse has been so up and down at the beginning. So moving on to, I'm going to switch it up here a little bit. We'll go to race 11, the Del Mar handicap. Switching things up, we will talk about the Classic last, even though the Classic will go off before the Del Mar handicap. But the Del Mar handicap is a Breeders' Cup win and you're in. It is getting you a ticket to the Longines Turf, which of course will be on that Saturday prior to the Classic. But let's go Del Mar handicap. I'll get this one started. Obviously, I'm just rolling through to make sure. Yeah. So we have United at the moment as the favorite. Let me just make sure nobody's even money. Yeah. So United right now, the horse that really has kind of been a king of Del Mar lately, at least on the turf. 5 runs at Del Mar, 3 in the winner's circle. The other 2 finished second. This horse, 6 years old, 1.6 million in earnings. And we go back to, last year's Del Mar handicap, and it was United and Red King. We get to see that matchup again, as obviously United is in it. Red King this year, who actually won last year's Del Mar handicap, is surprisingly 8-1 here. So there is plenty of value, but similar to a horse I think it talked about earlier at Saratoga, is a horse 7 years old. This will be its 35th race of its career. Once again, this is, it's still running very well, putting up 80s and 90s, but is it enough to get up over United, or even, as I roll through, make sure I don't miss, there it is, the 8 horse Arklow. Brad Cox and Florent Giroux, here we go, talking about that trainer jockey combination. But this is a horse that lives in the high 90s, low 100s on the buyer's scores on turf. This is a horse that's won 2.7 million. Another one that's maybe a little long in the tooth, if you will. This will be race number 34 of its career. 1-for-1 at Del Mar in its career on the turf. It was the Hollywood Turf Cup last year, last November. Ran its best run of its career in a 104. I really like Arklow here, especially at 5-2. United, 2-1. To be honest, just myself personally, I feel like every time I bet on United, it kind of struggles a bit or doesn't get what I need out of it. Arklow is the horse I definitely have my eye on here. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the win and you're in grade 2 Del Mar handicap?
Yeah, once again, I've got United with Flavian Pratt on board. Richard Mandel is the trainer. Winner circle 2 out of the last 3. The last time out, I remember watching the race, and I had money on this horse. That made me some decent money. Flavian Pratt in the saddle. They ran at 1 1/8 mile. Now this is going to be 1 3/8. It's an additional 1/4 mile. It's on the turf. But if anybody's going to have the horse perform, it's going to be Flavian Pratt, and Richard Mandel is going to have the horse ready to run. I also like Arklow with Florent Giroux on board. You mentioned the jockey trainer, Giroux and Brad Cox. They are a 29% winning combination. So there's that magic number, high 20s, 30%. Then I do like Acclimate as an underneath to fill in a ticket, but I really am keen right now on the 11 horse. Say the Word on the outside. That is Joe Bravo, Phil D'Amato. He's got 3 entries in this race, and right now sitting at 6-1 on the Equibase chart. So Say the Word I really like a lot. So it would be United, Arklow, Say the Word with Acclimate underneath.
Definitely. It's hard because, you know, I feel like we're sounding like broken records when we go, wow, it's going to be a great race, or, you know, it's a stacked field. But guess what? When you're giving out, 600,000, 300,000, 250,000, you're going to have a lot of really, really good races. Now, one thing to talk about here on this is actually going to be a 3-turn race. They're going to start in the back left on that turf track, essentially kind of the end of the back stretch. So they'll actually have to make 3 full turns here. Sometimes that's a little weird because obviously, look, all the tracks run the same amount of distances for the most part, but the tracks aren't the same amount of distance, if that makes sense. So, you know, you could go to Saratoga and run 1 1/8, and that's just their dirt track. Now at Del Mar, you're going to run this 1 3/8, and you're going to make 3 full turns. So I go back to a race, I want to say it was, maybe Saratoga or Keeneland, where they have a long backstretch where they can actually send certain mile horses out on that backstretch. So it turns into only 1 turn. So in my mind, of course, these horses, they know where that, where it is, where that finish line is. A lot of that is the turns that they make. So maybe does it maybe a little bit of a confusion on the backstretch for some of these races. Now, granted, all of these horses are 3-year-olds and up, and a lot of the horses I talked about, as I said, are, racing in at least their, 10 or 15th race. So plenty of veteran horses here, but that was something that caught my eye, that, you don't see too many 3-turn races, especially at Del Mar, but this will be one of them. So keep an eye on that. Hopefully all those horses are ready to roll, and it's going to be a beautiful day, I'm pretty sure. Actually, I can bet that it'll be a beautiful day on Saturday for Raider Jim. Actually going to go enjoy the ponies.
I will be there.
Live. So make sure if you're there, you go say hello to the guy who's probably been feeding you a ton of good picks either here or on Twitter. So with that, it is time to talk about the main event. Kind of, it's technically not the last race, but it is the $1 million Pacific Classic Stakes. Any other year when the Breeders' Cup isn't here, this is the biggest race at Del Mar that year. Obviously not at the moment. That won't be the case with the Breeders' Cup coming in a couple months, but for the summer circuit, this is the granddaddy of them all, if you will. Going 1.25 miles on the dirt. And once again, this is a ticket into the Breeders' Cup Longines Classic, which of course is, I believe, last time I think it was $6.5 million purse or $6 million purse. So
Correct.
It'll be very close to that, if not a little bit more. But Raider Jim, I'm going to give you the honors of the Pacific Classic Stakes.
What do you say about this race? You look at the field, you look at the odds, and usually you'll see great variance in the odds from the morning line favorite to the next 3, 4 maybe. If you look at the top horses here, you've got 3-1, 7-2, 4-1, 5-1, 5-1, 5-1. This is about as tight as it's going to get. And then again, I have touted the talent at Del Mar since we started this. Not just the caliber of horses, the athletes that are the horses that come in, but I have said all along, this is the all-star Hall of Fame jockey lineup. and you look down the list of the riders in this race, Thiago Pereira, Flavian Pratt, Joel Rosario, Mike Smith, the Hall of Famer, Juan Hernandez, Abel Cedillo, Laurent Giroux, Edwin Maldonado, Umberto Rispoli. Okay, so you want to pick your horse based on the jockey. Which one are you going to pick? But right now, it does look like Mike Smith is sitting on a good one with Royal. I can't see it now.
Royal Ship.
Royal Ship. Royal Ship right now at 7-2 is your favorite, and Royal Ship in the money the last three out has run at 1 1/16, 1 1/4, 1 1/8. Great speeds. Will definitely be pushing Tiz Magician. Now, Tiz Magician is at 5-1 with Flavian Pratt on board, a Richard Mandela horse. Tiz Magician seems to be the one to beat if you just look at everything in a big picture. A winner's circle 2 out of the last 3 times at 1.5 miles. And then the last 3 times it has run the 106, 102, 106. This horse can move. And with Flavian Pratt on board, I'm not too keen on the 2 position, but there, no pun intended, there's going to be some jockeying to get that horse in a spot, but if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Flavian Pratt. I do also like Independence Hall with Laurent Giroux, a Michael McCarthy horse, the other 5-1 horse that's out there. But this is a wide open race. Watch the lines, because I think the lines as they move are going to tell you from the inside what's really going on with horses. But I think it's going to be Royal Ship. It's going to be Tiz Magician. Watch Dr. Post. It's 2, 3, 4. And then again, you've got you can't overlook that 5 horse because you've got Juan Hernandez. So it could be 2, 3, 4, 5 are going to be the horses you see leading the field.
Yeah, this is a stacked field. Once again, I know probably sound like broken records, but it's just the case this weekend. Excuse me. I do want to start. It's always very interesting to me, especially in these big races. What I normally try and do is, find these horses that have had similar jockeys. Obviously, they haven't raced against each other, but they have similar jockeys. And because at that point, the jockey has to make a decision. Where do I go? What gives me the best chance to get into the winner's circle, get a percentage of that purse so that, you can feed your family and all that stuff. And in this situation, Flavian Pratt had a decision to make. It was either Tiz Magician or, let me just make sure I have it correct, or Independence Hall. Now, Independence Hall, as you said, has Laurent Giroux. So obviously, Tiz Magician, Flavian Pratt, looked at it and said, you know what? That gives me the best chance. That for me is always kind of a red flag, or in this case, kind of an arrow, like, hey, pick me, especially at 5-1. Although I will say my horse that I've had my eye on since, the nominations came out is that 5-horse Express Train. This is a horse that's 3 out of 4 at Del Mar in its career. And it did beat both Tripoli and Royal Ship last time out in July in the grade 2 San Diego handicap. And it wasn't a wire-to-wire finish, but it was, 1-2 the whole time. This is a horse that has according to time form, has an early pace of 105 and a late pace of 108 in a massive race like this. Or I'm sorry, not massive. I mean, it is a massive race, but in terms of a long race like this, I love that little ability that, hey, this horse, if it needs to get out on the lead, it can do that. If it needs to stalk, it can do that as well. Tripoli is the one horse. It's so hard to kind of pick between these horses because, I mean, the way it looks, the favorite's going to probably be 5-2, 3-1. And then you're going to have pretty much everyone else around 5-6-1. Maybe one will get up to that 20-1, but you're not going to see a massive long shot, and you're not going to see a really short numbered favorite. Looking at the Tripoli, the horse Tripoli at the 1 spot, you have John Sadler and TJ Pereira. The interesting thing about this horse, when we broke down the San Diego handicap, the horse or the race that Express Train won that I just talked about, the one thing that jumped out to me for Tripoli was this was a horse that in its first 11 races, it was on turf. And it ran well on turf. It was in the 80s and They moved it onto dirt, and it ran well in an optional claiming and then went straight up to a grade 2. This was a horse that wasn't even running in graded stakes races on turf. And then they throw it into a grade 2 on dirt. For me, I do vividly remember kind of cooling off on that horse and saying, you know what, let me see what this horse can do. Well, all this horse did was put up another 100 buyer score on dirt. So Tripoli at 5-1, one to keep your eye on. Then the way this race is going to go, they're going to shoot them off on the front stretch. So that this will be a true 2-turn race. But look, 1.25 miles, that is a long way to go. But all these horses have raced at least a mile, obviously. Dr. Post is another horse that you kind of touched on. I'll talk about 2 out of the last 3 times in the winner's circle. It will be its Del Mar debut. This is a East Coast horse. It will be kind of its West Coast, never raced at Santa Anita or Del Mar. So we'll see how that goes. That's never been kind of, for me, it's an East Coast horse, I'm going to stay away from it. But it is something to keep an eye on there. And then we've always talked about, of course, those international horses. And, a lot of times we do talk about, when we talk about international horses, it's either Ireland or Great Britain or France, kind of that European scene. But Royal Ship is one of the best horses that's come out of Brazil, maybe ever. And, whoever comes in and wins this race is going to probably be a contender for that Longines Classic, because at the very least, they will have already run on the same exact track that the Longines Classic will run in 3 or 4 months when that finally does go off. This is going to be a situation, once again, I always say it at one point in the podcast, it's very, very, very important for you to, hey, it's important to follow me, First Report, but Fridays and Saturdays I have work, so it's struggled for me to get those picks out. But Raider Jim Martinez, if you follow at Raider Jim 1090, that's the best chance, because all these numbers, they're probably going to move a little bit here and there. So we can talk about all these horses, but Raider Jim, as he talked about earlier, on those Saturdays, about 20 minutes to post, he's going to come out and say, okay, I like the odds on this or that. And he's going to give you his actual ticket, which is absolutely fantastic because, like I said, in horse racing, it isn't, we do our NFL podcast on Wednesday night. You can go in and lock your, -6.5 in. And no matter what happens, you're getting -6.5. That is not the case. You can go and put a bet right now on Royal Ship, and it's not going to be locked in at 7-2. It's going to be locked in at whatever it is when that bell goes. So it's very, very
I would tell you, given the caliber of the horses, given what we've already just talked about, we aren't being definitive about anything, and I will not be definitive on anything probably until between the races, between 9 and 10. Follow me on Twitter, and then maybe I'll be definitive. But what we've talked about right now, all subject to change. Real quick on Dr. Post, the one thing to keep in mind, good speeds, great earnings, and East Coast horse, but Joel Rosario, Todd Pletcher, 25% winning combination as far as the trainer jockey goes. And that's one of those things that you need to key in on a race like this.
I agree. It's going to be probably a 3 or 4 horse race there. Look, with all due respect to Cupid's Claws, Sheriff Brown, Magic on Tap. Hey, if they can come in and make somebody a good amount of money, fantastic. But I just think with the amount of top-heavy competition or top-heavy horses, I don't think we're going to see a massive payout, at least relatively. I think, we're, like I said, we're not going to see an even money in this race, but I also don't think we're going to see a 20-1 shot get in on that ticket. So you're going to have to, maybe be a little creative or, figure out which one of those horses we just talked about you feel best about. And as we said, a lot of that is what the odds are looking like. And Raider Jim has brought it up multiple times. When you do see the odds move one way or another, more than likely someone who is in the know obviously knows something, and you might want to take a step back and try and at least if you can't answer why that odds moved, you might want to just move along or at least cut that bet in half, because unfortunately a lot of things go on behind the scenes and they don't want to put that stuff on Twitter, obviously. So for obvious reasons, but that is all we have for the Del Mar. But I know Raider Jim, you wanted to talk about a couple races going off at Arlington as well this weekend.
Actually, it was, I just want to do a recap of the races from Arlington from last week. That's okay. Saturday, August the 14th, it was actually the end of an era. It was a historic day of racing at Arlington. Arlington is a racetrack in the suburbs of Chicago, has been around for years and years and years, has gone under ownership changes a few times, and is currently owned by Churchill Downs Incorporated. Well, Arlington, for those of you who don't know, was the very first racetrack to offer a $1 million purse. And that was way, way back. I believe that was in the 80s, early 80s. And since then, annually, they have their one day of $1 million races where they have, a $300,000 purse, a $600,000 purse, $400,000 purse, and it's their big feature day of summer racing. And last Saturday was the last day that they are going to be holding that, because Churchill Downs Incorporated has decided to sell the property. They're going to sell it for development. They will probably turn over, however it is done in the racing circle, all the rights to the races to somebody, but they haven't said what track yet. It may be in the running for that. But it was a big day at Arlington. The races were great. They didn't disappoint. It started with race 7, the Beverly D Stakes, $400,000. And we had all 3 horses that came in the money. It was a small field and it was the favorites. So it's not like we're big geniuses, but we did have them all with Santa Barbara, Mean Mary, and La Mista was the, I don't have my glasses on. La Mista came in the show. Arlington 8, it was the Bruce D G-1 Stakes, $300,000, where we had Point by Me, Tango, 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 and Ginsburg. Now, Point by Me, as I said earlier, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll say, these are the top 3, fill in underneath with this as your long shot, which is how we had got Stormy on the ticket last week. Well, Point by Me was my, put this one as your under and build it into your ticket. Point by Me ends up in the winner's circle. Race 9, it was the Mr. D Stakes, $600,000, the big fourth, the third that pumps it up over $1 million. It was 2 Emmys, domestic spending in Glenn County. Now, I had domestic spending. I had Glenn County. I did not have 2 Emmys, and I'd be lying to you if I said I did. 2 Emmys came in, I think it was 25-26 to 1. Wow. And ended up winning the race. It was a great race, though. You couldn't take anything away from the horse. But again, there you have it, the 3 big races at Arlington. And it was sad to see the end of an era, but congratulations and kudos. You think you get a little bit nostalgic. You think about the guy who's even older than Raider Jim, who lives close and has been there. I'm thinking about what would happen in 10, 15 years if one day I went to Del Mar knowing that it was the last time I was going to get to see X race, X jockey at Del Mar, because San Diego decided to sell the property to build condos or a mall or outlet stores. So my heart goes out to the thoroughbred race fans in the area, the locals who probably don't travel and probably just like to spend their time at that track for family time, afternoon time. Hate to see something like that close down.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up too, because I actually, obviously, I'm a bartender, so I have a couple regulars, and Dominic and Susan, if you're listening, thank you. But they, obviously, Susan's a huge Cubs fan from Chicago. And, we've had that a conversation in the past with Tim Conway Jr., and his name had come up. And I had brought up that, hey, we actually have a horse racing podcast, and we've interviewed him in the past. And they brought up the fact that they had already done it, but this was about 3 or 4 months ago, that they were taking time out of their vacation. They were going to go back to Chicago and enjoy Arlington one last time. And, it's sad. It really is sad, even for us to think. And it seems somewhat, unfathomable, at least with Del Mar. And I'm not up to date on Arlington or anything like that, but with Del Mar. But you know what? Del Mar, that has been kind of looming over Del Mar for quite some time. The development, the price tag on that property, it's high. And I'm sure it's the same way in Chicago, or at least the greater suburbs of Chicago and Arlington. It's just very sad. because there are a lot of, as you said, horse racing fans. And, I'm getting kind of a pit in my stomach thinking about like what you said, walking through Del Mar, looking around going, this is the last time I will ever be able to do this. I mean, I'm getting choked up just thinking about it, and it's not, not happening here, but that's very, very, very unfortunate. It's life, though. I mean, I'm sure, we live in a capitalist country.
Unfortunately, a lot of times in these situations, it's the golden rule, and that is he who has the gold rules.
Well, so, and if you enjoy that, I believe that new SoFi Stadium, you can look at Hollywood Park. I believe Hollywood Park was tore down or taken, which opened up the door for the Bing Crosby season at Del Mar, which then opened up the possibility of once every 4 or 5 years getting what we're going to get this year in the Breeders' Cup. So it is unfortunate. Now, the one thing with Hollywood Park, obviously plenty of people absolutely loved it. You still had Santa Anita, you still got Los Alamitos. So it's not like the LA area does not have a good track. I'm not quite sure about Chicago, but I'm sure they will all miss Arlington very much. But thank you very much for Raider Jim for bringing that to our attention.
Of course.
Final thoughts for another fantastic loaded original call to post.
I am a kid in a candy store with this week's programs. It is just amazing. It's going to be a great, busy day. Going to be interesting to see. It's one thing to be sitting in your garage or doing yard work and taking 20 minutes to figure out the next race. I'll be curious to see how well I can focus with all the crowd around me and trying to run down to the paddock and see if maybe I can get some footage or something of the jockeys mounting up, the Joe Bravos, the Flavian Pratts. Who knows? I know Joe Bravo is he's riding in race 1, and then he has a break until race 5. And I am the guy who's going to go mill around and see if I can wave down Joe Bravo and just get a couple words from him.
That would be amazing. And I agree. Obviously it's funny, when you're sitting at home and you're, playing, through TVG or something like that, sometimes the time between races seems like a very, very long time, hours. And then you're at the track and it feels like minutes. You kind of, that's the one thing I've always said when I'm at the track is there are a lot of distractions. There are a lot of ways for you to get distracted. And the next thing you know, the riders are approaching the starting gates and you don't have your pick yet. That's always a bit of a challenge, but it's a good challenge because look, if you are distracted like that, it's a beautiful area, beautiful people around it. It's a great place to take in some races. And this Saturday will be, I'm going to say, the third best day this year because Saturday and Friday of Breeders' Cup will be right behind that. But we're going to go to Raider Jim will be at least 2 of those 3, hopefully all 3. But I'll be there for the Friday as well with Raider Jim. But that is all we have for you today on this edition of the original Call to Post presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon, and we hope to see you at the window.
Bet smart, bet safe. Peace out.